Hey everybody, Hoosier Jedi here with another review for you. And this time I'm talking about episode 1 of season 7 of Dexter. It's been way too long since we got some Dexter goodness, and last season definitely ended on a one heck of a cliffhanger. So let's get right into talking about what we're dealing with here. Now, honestly, the big mystery, as it were, this episode, um, not really a terribly strong thing. This is honestly a pretty routine figure out who the guilty party is and go get him thing for Dexter. And the only real aftermath of it all is that Mike dies. And I didn't really feel that Mike was a terribly strong character. I mean, he had his moments last season. I certainly will grant him that. But he ultimately, to me, just felt like more of a plot device. To give Debra someone to interact with on that level, rather than really coming into his own as a character. He's certainly not on the level of somebody like Masuka or Angel or Quinn. So seeing him die didn't really bother me all that much. But the real thing that we're dealing with here, of course, is the changed relationship, the forever changed relationship between Debra and Dexter. Now, I've read all but the most recent Dexter novel, Double Dexter, I believe they call it. I felt pretty burned after reading Dexter is Delicious, which I thought was honestly junk. So I still haven't bothered to read Double Dexter. But basically, in the books, Debra ultimately accepts that Dexter is a serial killer, but she still sort of feels conflicted about it. And I have a feeling that's where we're going to go with Debra here on the TV show, because simply it's either Debra does this or Debra leaves Miami or Dexter's life forever, which I really don't think is going to happen, or Debra turns Dexter into the cops. And seeing as how we already know that there's a season 8 going to be happening, I just don't see that happening. So yeah, I'm going to do something I don't normally do and make a prediction in that Debra will just ultimately accept that Dexter is a serial killer. But looking at the situation, though, it is interesting. Dexter is, of course, thrown for a loop by this. But after he has a couple of minutes to, I wouldn't exactly say calm down, but in the back of his mind think about how he's going to handle this, we start seeing Dexter, I don't know if exactly master manipulator is quite applicable to Dexter, because Dexter's attempts to manipulate people have blown up in his face more times than I can count. But even then, Dexter's still pretty darn good at it, and nobody on the face of the earth is better at pushing Debra's emotional buttons than Dexter. He's known her his whole life. He knows Debra better than anyone. And that is the thing. He very quickly is able to sort of get control to some degree of the situation and start steering Debra down the path of covering all of this up. Debra is, of course, massively off balance, which is the reason that Dexter can do all of this to somebody who, like her, an experienced, hard-nosed cop. But again, to be completely fair to Debra's character, she's just received the biggest shock of her entire life. There is nothing that can really prepare you in life for finding out that your brother is a serial killer. I mean, Dexter at least has the benefit of having already found out that his brother is a serial killer. And, there's the whole thing of Dexter himself being a serial killer. And it's actually sort of disturbing. Now, disturbing stuff in Dexter is hardly anything new, but as we've seen, Debra is the one of the few people that Dexter genuinely cares about. And to see him so easily turn on the manipulation, to so easily just use Debra in a way, it reminds us that, while Dexter at the end of the day is probably responsible for a net gain of good in the universe, Dexter himself is not a good person. He does occasionally do things, that have nothing to do with kill people that are ultimately good. He does certainly care about his son, but at the end of the day, those are really more the exceptions than the rules with Dexter's character. At the end of the day, Dexter is a killer. He doesn't really kill because he's, like the Punisher or somebody like that, or who wants to go out there and, rid the world of bad guys to make the world a better place. Dexter kills because he is driven to kill. He does not really have a choice. Killing is what he does. He's only, because of Harry's influence, a somewhat choosy about it. I mean, just look at the episode of Nebraska where Brian's whatever spirit is ultimately compelling Dexter to just go out and kill anybody who crosses his path just for the hell of it. Dexter ultimately rejects that. And it is that selectiveness that allows us to root for Dexter. But again, a core thing of Dexter's character is that he manipulates and lies and uses the people around him. I mean, it's much more clear in the books, for example, where it's very explicitly spelled out that Rita was really an accessory to Dexter's disguise. And now, to be completely fair, though, in the books, Dexter also explicitly does say that, and this is something that was even repeated in the show, that if he could really truly care about someone in his life, he would want that person to be Debra. And what I do like about this episode, in terms of what this is, one, it really serves us to remind us that Dexter is, at best, an extraordinarily morally ambiguous character. It reminds us that Dexter, in order to survive and do what he does, must use the people he cares about the most at times. His friends, his co-workers, his family. And at the end of it all, Dexter's manipulations of her ultimately don't pan out. Debra is also Harry's daughter. She learned from him a lot of things too. And at the end of the day, she is a really good cop. I mean, it's explicitly spelled out in the books that if Debra didn't have such a blind spot for him, then Dexter would have been caught years ago, probably by her. And we've certainly seen that more than once here on the show. But as Debra sort of reboots from her big blue screen of death moment, she starts to put things together. She starts to realize that Dexter has been manipulating her, that this whole killing somebody thing is not just a one-off. And by the end of this episode, it's all out there. Debra knows that Dexter is a serial killer, and she's almost certainly put it together that Dexter is indeed the Bay Harbor Butcher. So, and when she confronts him with this, Dexter doesn't even try and lie. Obviously he can't. Deborah's got a mountain of evidence sitting right there around him. But just look at the way he admits to it all. He's not upset that his plan didn't work. He's not upset that Debra found out. He's relieved. Because now, since Brian died, Dexter has found someone who just might possibly truly be able to understand him. Now, the thing is, though, that Brian just wanted Dexter to kill. He wanted Dexter to be nothing more than a predator, to be a killing machine. Now, what does Debra want? Well, obviously she doesn't want Dexter to go around killing people anymore. But I have the feel, well, obviously the show isn't going to be more fun if Dexter stops killing people. So, in a way, I kind of think that she's going to be more of the replacement Harry. Not so much in as giving Dexter advice about how his life. She's kind of there to keep him honest, to make sure that Dexter really does truly follow the code. Because, well, let's face it, Dexter's fallen off the bandwagon a couple of times. Now, remember that British photographer guy now that he killed, and only for the killer to turn out to be someone else? Okay, that's Dexter killing an innocent person. Now, granted, it was heavily implied in that episode that the photographer was guilty of rape, so he probably did deserve to die. But remember after Rita's death when Dexter killed a guy in a bathroom for no other reason that the guy was kind of an asshole to him? Seriously, the guy just... Now, granted, the guy did insult Dexter's dead wife, but insults are not covered under the Code of Harry. Let's be explicit here. Dexter has, over the course of the series, to the best of my count, according to the Code of Harry, killed 3 innocent people. Now, granted, 2 of them were people who had probably done bad stuff and deserved it, but again, the guy in the bathroom that they never mention again was, by all definitions, completely innocent of anything beyond being a dick. And Dexter killed him. So, yeah, that never being brought up again, that never really being addressed, is always will be one of my big gripes with the show, because in my mind, that is a serious misstep that the show made, and I freely admit it, I'm never gonna let that go. But I won't harp on that anymore. This particular review, I think enough about it has been said. Now, let's move on a little bit and talk about what's going on with Dexter as this episode progresses. Now, I do like, for one thing, we get another classic Dexter. You think we're seeing one thing at the beginning of an episode, and by the end of the episode, we're seeing something completely different. We're meant to, at the very beginning of the episode, to think that, Debra really might have turned Dexter into Miami Metro, and this is Dexter fleeing the country. And of course, he's really just tracking down the Ukrainian guy who killed Mike. Now, first of all, I have to point out that Dexter killing this guy at the airport has to be one of the most moronic things I have ever seen Dexter do in the history of this show. Now, one of the reasons that Dexter gets away with so much of what he does is because he's a television character, and surveillance cameras only catch him on tape when it's convenient for the plot. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know about you, but if you've been to the airport recently, and I have, you've kind of noticed that there's a lot of security cameras everywhere, and there are people monitoring those security cameras. So the idea that Dexter is going to be able to set up a kill room in the airport, oh my god, I just do not have words for how monumentally stupid that is. I mean, seriously, this is like the worst kill room ever. I mean, seriously, airport security will catch you for having a bottle of suntan lotion that's over a certain amount of size, and to prevent terrorism, make you throw it out. And yes, that happened to me, and I'm still bitter about it. I spent like $12 on that suntan lotion. $12! I had to throw it in the freaking trash. But anyway, but Dexter, Ooh, darn you, airport security. Okay, calm down. Alright. Now, Dexter does, in his little conversation with Victor, or whatever the hell that Ukrainian guy's name was, he's not important, does tell him that the reason he's killing him is, I need control. I mean, Dexter even points out that going out and killing somebody at this point, after what's happened, is a horrible idea. But again, Dexter is driven to do this. He can't help himself, and he doesn't want to help himself. And after this happening, after Debra finding out his big secret, of course Dexter feels a complete lack of control. His life is irrevocably changed. It can never be what it was before. His big secret is on the verge, possibly, of being exposed to the world. His whole world could come crashing down around his ears. Of course Dexter doesn't feel in control. So, of course, Dexter goes out and he does the one thing that can make him feel as if he is in control again, and that is to kill. And I love that just as he's sort of strolling out of the airport with a body, again, Dexter can wander around in the back parts of airports, completely not noticed by security, kill a guy there. Dexter even says, I think this might all work out. It really is funny just how, in some ways, Dexter is actually an optimist. He can continually do all these extraordinarily risky to his whole secret identity as a serial killer thing, and he just continually keeps on thinking that this will work out. And of course, it never, ever does. I mean, let's see. How did that whole marrying Rita thing pan out for you, Dexter? I mean, granted, you got Harrison out of the deal. That's cool and all, but yeah, John Lithgow murdered your wife. That didn't work out so well, and oh yeah, your kids got packed off to live with their grandparents in Orlando, who, if I remember, according to both books and the show, are supposed to be complete dickwads. So, yay for Aster and Cody's future. But anyway, I do like that Dexter, in a way, basically sets himself up for a fall there. He's literally walking out of there, a big smile on his face, thinking, yeah, everything's going to be all right after all. And then he gets hit with Debra knows the truth. And yeah, folks, it's never going to be the same again. Now, let's talk about some of the other characters that we have this episode. We got Lewis still hanging around for some reason. All Lewis really does is sort of bitch about Dexter and then screw with his credit card. Now, I'm really kind of wondering just why, in the name of all that is holy, Lewis is still around. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't hate Lewis. It's just, now that his role as the intern is over with, I just don't understand why the show is keeping him around. And the only thing I can think of is, one, Lewis is going to become some sort of a minor antagonist this season. And we're already seeing him, him acting out a minor grudge against Dexter. My other thought on this is that Lewis is going to end up being some kind of deus ex machina that helps Dexter cover something big later on in the series. We've already seen he has some pretty incredible hacking skills. And we've also seen that he's got a pretty creepy obsession with serial killers. I think Lewis might get to learn a little bit more about serial killers than he would ever want to firsthand. Possibly by either being the victim of one, i.e. Dexter, or possibly, and this is again just me floating an idea that's crossed my mind here, ending up joining them. And if that's the case, boy, I think Harrison could possibly end up being in the market for another new babysitter. Speaking of which, hey, whatever happened to that Irish lady? Correct me if I'm wrong, but boy, did they never say one word about whatever happened to her. Okay, so that said, let's move over and talk about another character, and this is La Huerta. Now, I'm not going to lie to you folks. After what happened last season, I'm basically begging the show to kill La Huerta off. Now, in the earlier seasons, La Huerta occasionally had her ambiguous moments, but I genuinely felt that, for the most part, she was on the side of the Angels. Last season, she's begging, she's blackmailing her superiors, she's helping to cover up people's deaths, and she even basically flat out goes to Debra and basically says, like, yeah, I used you and you're going to dance to my tune like it or not. I mean, wow, what a bitch. Never mind the fact that, she treated Angel really crappy. And, dude, I love Angel. Angel's awesome. So, this whole thing with La Huerta nosing around the slide, possibly having another look at the Bay Harbor Butcher case. Because you gotta figure that, actually, how in the world did her career survive having one of her people serving under her turn out to be a serial killer? Boy. If you stop and think about that, the fact that she got promoted is really amazing. Oh wait, she used blackmail to make that happen. Oh well, sometimes you just can't think about things too much, right? But anyway, so this could possibly look at us seeing a genuine Dexter versus La Huerta thing. And if that's the case, then it really does sort of make sense that Deb would rally to Dexter's side, because boy howdy, Debra is not a fan of LaGuerta these days. I mean, again, LaGuerta basically out in that parking lot in the scene last season even told Debra that she's perfectly fine with using Debra if it suits her purposes, and that Debra's just going to have to live with being LaGuerta's tool. I mean, seriously, I cannot explain to you just how much that scene upset me. But anyway, let's move on. Another thing that I'm thinking that might happen with LaGuerta is I'm thinking this might be the last season for her. I really don't know how much longer they can kind of keep her around with the path that she's been going down. I mean, exactly how long is Dexter, if he ever finds out about this, gonna tolerate a crooked cop? Now, granted, LaGuerta hasn't done anything that would get her an appointment with Dexter's knife, but still, Dexter's a smart enough person that if he really puts his mind to it, he could probably find a way to, at the very least, get LaGuerta kicked off the force. I mean, seriously, LaGuerta has screwed with his sister and done wrong to Angel, one of Dexter's few friends. So, while Dexter might have respect for LaGuerta, for doing that, I think he'd be willing to take her down. And even then, doing that just opens the door for Debra to go further up the ladder. And Debra getting kicked upstairs at this point would probably be quite the boon for Dexter. So anyway, with that said, let's actually go and talk about, since I've been mentioning him, let's talk about Angel. Angel doesn't really have a lot to go on happening this episode. He's kind of off to the sidelines, but he does get his screen time, and he shares this with Quinn. Now, first of all, I have to say, the idea of Quinn going around and calling, people perverts is just, to me, loaded with irony because, well, I'm sorry, Quinn, exactly who are you to pass moral judgments on people? I mean, aren't you an alcoholic guy who's lied repeatedly, hit on Angel's sister, and oh yeah, you were taking bribes a while back, and you feel the need that you're in a position to judge people for being in a strip club? I mean, really, you honestly feel that after all of this, you in some way have moral superiority over just about anybody? Man, that's the great thing about Quinn. He can pull off being so completely full of shit and still be a somewhat likable character. And, Angel even points this out, like that Quinn's a liar and a kind of a dick. But Quinn catches him in it all, in that, like, when he says to Angel, like, yeah, but you still like me. So, I'm thinking that kind of, I feel a little bad using this term, but I can't think of anything that quite fits it, is a rekindling of the genuine partnership between Quinn and Angel. Miami-Dade needs some serious cops. Mike's dead. Debra is going to be in some real emotional turmoil for, I'm guessing, the entire season. LaGuerta's not exactly crooked, but, she has virtually no real morals left at all. So, to me, that says that Angel and Quinn are going to have to stand up and sort of take center stage as the cops who go out there and do the right thing. Now, granted, this is Dexter, so of course they're probably going to screw things up, make very bad decisions, and probably do some rather immoral things anyway. But nobody ever said that the world of Dexter was a happy, cheerful place full of bunnies. Which, considering what Dexter probably, that what we saw this about Dexter as a kid, is probably a good thing for the bunnies at the very least. And let's see. Yeah, overall, I think that's mainly all I have to say about this episode. We are introduced to one more character. I believe his name was Isaac at the very end. It looks like he's heavily tied to the Ukrainian mob. Dexter versus the mob. Okay, this sounds like it's got some potential. This definitely looks like an interesting thing. It's something we haven't quite seen before, and it's certainly going to provide Dexter with no shortage of guys who could use his particular brand of quote-unquote justice. So I think there's a lot to look forward to this season. There's the first episode certainly does have its stumbling blocks, but even an episode of Dexter with some serious flaws in it is still better than 90% of the other TV shows that are out there. So I definitely give this episode a big, big thumbs up. I cannot wait to see where things are going to go this season. Hugely looking forward to the next episode. And all I can say, folks, is buckle in. I think we're in for another really great ride. Now, with that said, as always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. You can, of course, follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi. And just so you know that if you're one of my new viewers, immediately after I upload one of these video reviews, I always immediately tweet it. So if you want to see these reviews as soon as possible, please join me on Twitter. I would love to see you there. And I promise you I will try not to jam your Twitter feed up with too much stuff. And with that said, folks, please take care and have a good one.